With the belief and security that Canada is the government's primary responsibility, we have over the years passed such legislation as the Combating Terrorism Act and the Strengthening Canadian Citizenship Act to better protect Canadians and secure our institutions. Our laws and police powers need to be strengthened in the area of surveillance, detention, and arrest. They need to be much strengthened, and I assure you, Mr. Speaker, that work, which is already underway, will be expedited.
Giving Canada's spy agency CSIS some more powers under this new bill, C-44, is what is being debated in Parliament Hill as we speak. For more on this, I'm joined by the Parliamentary Secretary for Public Safety Minister, Stephen Blaney. Her name is Roxanne James, joins me from Ottawa. Roxanne, thanks very much for being here.
My pleasure.
One of the things that Canadians have on their mind when they've been reading about this legislation, because your government was going to table it a couple of weeks ago, but a terrorist attack on Parliament Hill had thwarted that. But here's where we find ourselves now. The bill has been tabled. There is concern that this could potentially give our spy agencies an overreach of, individual Canadian citizens and thwarting some of our civil liberties. How do you respond to that?
I think that's absolutely not the case. As you know, recent court decisions have called into question the authority of CSIS to be able to operate overseas, to be able to communicate and gather evidence with our Five Eyes partners, as well as we need the ability to ensure that human sources, informants, have the protection under the courts that other police agencies do across this country. This is something that is absolutely required. It was definitely not a knee-jerk reaction, as some of the opposition have said it was. As you indicated, this legislation was announced prior to the incidents that happened here in Quebec and in Ottawa on the War Memorial and on Parliament Hill. And sadly, but ironically, it was to be tabled the day of the attacks.
Yeah, it was. But this is a piece of legislation, of course, that I think, generally speaking, and in the environment in which we find ourselves, Roxanne, I think a lot of Canadians, in spite of what the opposition says, will welcome it, because we are we have a threat against us, and that's the reality of either us being part of the coalition who's conducting airstrikes against ISIS, or the fact that we have homegrown terrorism. We have these so-called lone wolf attacks. Is this legislation going to allow CSIS far broader ability to track, to watch, to monitor? Because there are also some changes to citizenship rules under that. So can you sort of tie those in together for me?
Yes, thank you. The powers within CSIS already exist. As I indicated, the court's called into question that authority. We want to ensure that CSIS has the ability, the capacity, and the capabilities to continue what they are doing. It's crucial for investigation. It's crucial for surveillance, the ability to make arrests and provide enough evidence to support a case. Obviously, the concern for informants is a major issue that we need to ensure that someone who has been given the protection, that we need to ensure that their identity is not released to the general public. And as well, you did mention the additional piece that is in there that relates to the citizen, or the Strengthening Citizenship Act. This is actually not a change to the original legislation that already received royal assent. What we're doing in this bill is making sure that the actual coming into force occurs much earlier than originally tabled.
What would you say, though, because we know the opposition talking points on this, Roxanne. We know that they are going to say, you as a Canadian, you're going to be spied on, sort of all that fear-mongering which often happens. What do you say to Canadians to allay those concerns?
Well, I think that we've seen what has happened. If we go back a number of years, none of us would have ever expected to hear about the Toronto 18, the fact that there were terrorist camps, training camps operating in Ontario, the Via Rail plot, and of course no one would ever have imagined the attacks that happened here against our Canadian Armed Forces and against our institution of governance. I think it's clear Canadians want to feel safe and secure. We have full confidence in our security agencies to do that. We're providing them the tool in this legislation to ensure that they have that capacity. But there's something we must be careful of. We're not going to overreact to the situation that is upon us, but we have to stop underreacting to the very real threat of terrorism. We are not immune to the threats of terrorism. Recent events have indicated so.
All right, Roxanne, just before I let you go, in the few seconds we have left, do you expect that this piece of legislation, once it does pass, you guys have a majority, so it should pass after third reading, do you think it will be challenged in the courts?
With every piece of legislation, we ensure that there's a legal opinion on that. We believe that it's sound, and I think that it's also common sense. I think most Canadians across this country would agree to that.
All right. Big thank you to Roxanne
Thank you.
James, is the Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister responsible for Public Safety, joining us from Ottawa. Thank you very much.
Thank you.